I'm Adelaide, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hello, I'm Adelaide and welcome to my channel. If you want to subscribe, that would mean a super lot to me. I am going to be making lots and lots of educational videos about ADHD and autism, and today we're going to talk about stimming. So firstly, what is stimming? So stimming is described as like repetitive movements such as moving your hands, mouth, body in repetitive ways. Stimming in general is something that every single human being does. It is a way to regulate your body and regulate your emotions and things, but people with autism and perhaps ADHD sometimes tend to stim more often because we need to regulate more often. There are lots of different types of stimming, and the first one we're going to talk about is visual stimming. So visual stimming is the stimming and repetitiveness of things visually, if that was not self-explanatory. Some examples of like visual stimming are like staring at objects such as lava lamps and like flashing lights and things like that. There's also like forced blinking. So if you like blink like for ages and you can see like lights in your eyes, so that would be classed as visual stimming. You can also have visual stimming in forms of moving things across your face, like your hands and watching your hands. A lot of people who like visual stimming also watch ASMR just for the finger movements and stuff, like when they do like this. Also, if you're using a fidget toy, you're like watching the fidget toy, that can also be classed as a visual stim. The next we have examples of auditory stims. So auditory stims are listening stims. So that could be anything from listening to music like through headphones or out loud, listening to the tapping of things, clicking pens. This fidget toy, which is one of my favourites, and I like this because of the sound that it makes. Oh, it gives me a shiver, it gives me like a good itch. I love, like, it feels like my brain is having a good itch. You also have like fidget cubes and things like that that have like clicky noises and buttons and stuff because people enjoy the sound of the fidget toy. Having like different types of stimming is that although the stimming could be therapeutic to yourself, it could be like really super triggering for somebody else. I love auditory stimming. I love listening to music. I love making like weird mouth sounds because I like the way that they sound, as well as obviously the way that they feel inside of my mouth. But if other people around me are doing auditory stimming or making noises and like clicking pens and stuff, I find it almost infuriating to the point I want to cry because it is too much for me. And that goes for every single type of stimming. Some people's stims may be really triggering to other people. Each to their own, everybody's an individual. Another type of stimming is tactile stimming, and this is touch. So feeling things such as certain types of fabrics, and for example, I have this like cute little ring on my finger and I like the way that it feels on my thumb. So I like to like flick it around like this because I have a very anxious stim that I do, and it's like scratching my finger, and I have a fidget that I sometimes wrap around my finger and do this with, and if I don't have that to hand. But yeah, I like the feel of this one. I like the way that the balls feel on my fingers. You also have stress balls, which are really good for tactile stimming. You have like different types of textures on fidgets. So for example, I have this tangle, which it's not broken, it's just not connected, and it has different textures on it, similar to the ones that I use to wrap around my fingers so that I can. Another tactile stim that a lot of people don't actually know is a stim is scrolling on your phone. Another tactile stim could be playing with bubble wrap, so like the texture of bubble wrap, but then that could also be classed as an auditory stim when you want to pop the bubble wrap as well. And then we have my favourite type of stimming, which is verbal stimming. Verbal stimming is, I think, so like common. I think a lot more people verbal stim than they actually realise. So I didn't know that I was verbal stimming, but I would just repeat phrases and sounds all the time, and that is actually called echolalia, and I will do a video on echolalia at some point. Verbal stimming is making mouth sounds or singing along to music, singing kind of what you're doing, which is something that I do a lot. For example, if I'm like making a cup of tea, I'll sing that I'm making a cup of tea, and I'll sing all the actions that I'm doing. It's also repeating phrases that you've heard on TV or, you know, that someone has said. Last week I spent about 3 days just saying the word egg, just really like randomly in different accents and just going egg, 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 egg. For the like, because I just really was enjoying the way that it was feeling in my mouth. It's just an auditory stim. I also do a throat clearing auditory stim a lot, and I try really hard not to do it, but the majority of the time it is so involuntary. And if I'm with anybody, they're like, "Are you okay? What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What?" And like, "What's that noise?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry." And I'm like a frog. You can see my throat moving. I don't know why I do it, I just do it. It's very involuntary, something I've always done. It's probably the one I do the most often. More types of verbal stimming is like squealing, screaming, talking a lot can be a verbal stim. Like if you're just home alone and you just start having a conversation with yourself, can be classed as verbal stimming. Mimicking sounds, like if you mimic like car sounds when they're going by, any noise that you can make, like that would be classed as a verbal stim. People often mistake verbal and oral stims. So an oral stim is something that you use inside of your mouth for the texture of it in your mouth, for the taste of it, for the feel of it and things like that. An oral stim would be like biting or sucking the inside of your cheek or sucking on your tongue. It could also be like moving your tongue like inside of your mouth. It can be sucking on your thumb, biting your nails, or using jewellery, which is like chewable jewellery. I sometimes wear that, especially if I'm having really horrible anxiety, because I need it so I don't like chew on the skin on my hands and inside my mouth. I'll use jewellery instead. Eating like sour sweets is a form of oral stimming, and so is, you know, spicy foods and things like that. There's also olfactory stimming, which is scent. I personally don't typically stim olfactory because I get really overwhelmed by smells. It's one of my sensory issues in terms of I cannot handle smell. I get really panicky, really anxious. I'll get like really intense headaches and I feel really disorientated. Shops like Lush, for example, I can't go into Lush. Every time I go in, I'm in there for like a couple of minutes. I need to leave because it is overpowering, it is too much. But I'm the same way with all types of smells. I have a really sensitive sense of smell. I have scents that are very triggering to me and scents that are just kind of like neutral. Types of olfactory stimming would be smelling like clothing items, especially if they've just been washed. You also have the types of olfactory, which is like you like to smell like dirty clothes as well. Smelling like fresh scents, or the smell like in the morning when it's been raining, like the smell of the grass and mildew and things like that. You have like essential oils, scented candles, like aroma things like scented massage lotions and hand creams that you can put on so you can smell them, and going out of your way to seek out particular smells. Like I know a lot of people really enjoy the smell of like petrol. Petrol is one of the smells that I do actually quite like, but I can only take it in small doses, like walking past a petrol station, and I quite like that smell. I like citrusy smells, but again, not overbearingly. I don't seek out scents because I get overwhelmed with scents, but I do enjoy most citrusy smells over any other type of scent. So we've got vestibular and proprioceptive stimming, and these are types of stims that are like movement stims, for example, spinning in circles or playing on swing sets. It can be like rocking yourself back and forth, using weighted blankets, needing like tight pressured hugs, compression vests and things like that. There's also like balancing on one leg, playing on slides and different things that come under like body and movement type of stims. I posted a thing on Instagram and I asked people what their favourite stims were, and the majority of stims that people do are flapping hands, which is very common. So you can have flappy hands like this way, you can do it like this, like any way that you like move your hands is technically flappy hands. There's also wiggling your fingers and wiggling your toes. I wiggle my toes all of the time because I constantly need my feet to be moving, otherwise I can feel my feet and then I'm like really aware that I have feet and I don't like the way that they feel, especially if I'm wearing shoes. If I can't wiggle my toes in my shoes, I then feel like my shoe is too shoey and my socks on my foot, and it's just, I can't move my foot correctly and I do not like it. Another one that people said is dancing. Dancing is one of my favourite things to do, especially when I'm like alone. Free dancing and just like moving my body in ways that feels good, especially if I'm listening to music. And that was another really common thing that people commented, is dancing freely. Also have tapping your feet over and over. I used to have this stim, I used to get in trouble for it a lot when I was younger, and it is rubbing my feet on the carpet, especially if I'm wearing socks, like really fast. I would always get told to stop it because it was really frustrating and annoying. Like this sound was annoying like my parents and stuff, so I would only do it when I was in my bedroom, and then I just kind of stopped doing it, and then now I do it all the time because it feels good. I like it. There's also like pushing your thumbs down with your fingers or pushing your fingers down with your thumb. This is something that I do constantly. I'm always doing this. Another one that people commented was tapping on their collarbones or tapping on their head. I don't personally do any of these ones. I do tend to like grab and pull my hair a lot, but that's more when I'm feeling really overwhelmed and really anxious, and it's like just really involuntary. I just grab and I can't really help it. It is frustrating and it really hurts. So a little tip that I think might be really super helpful on how to stim is to do it alone first. So when you're by yourself, just there's no judgment, there's nobody around, just kind of be in the moment and practice. See what other people do for stims. Have a look at common stims and do it and see how it feels when you do it. At first it might feel really silly, you might think this is literally doing nothing, like, and that's fine. That just means that that stim isn't for you. And see what actually makes you feel calm, what actually makes you feel comfortable and feel good and feel happy and feel regulated. And the more you do it, the more you'll realize that your body just tends to go and do it naturally, and you will realize a lot of things that you're already doing are already stims. You're just suppressing them a lot. What works for me won't work for you, and what works for you won't work for somebody else. Everyone is completely different, and that's okay. That is the beauty of just being a person, being a human being. Every single human being is different, and just because you know or have listened to one autistic person does not mean you know about autistic people. You just know about that autistic person. We are all different, we are all individual, we all have our own experiences, we have our own issues, we have our own opinions and everything. We are individuals. We do not speak on behalf of the entire autistic community when we are talking about things. We're just talking from our own perspective. I don't speak for everyone, such as other people who are autistic don't speak for me, and vice versa. And I think that's really good. It's a really lovely way to learn and to be able to accommodate for people and to really understand what it is. I think the fact that everyone is different, and there are so many people now and so many amazing creators making content about their experience with autism, when you watch all of these different creators and learn more, you not only learn more about yourself, but you learn about how different we all are, but how similar we all are as well. And I just think it's really beautiful, and I just love that we're all different and that we can learn from one another, and it really helps broaden your mind and helps you actually understand autism as opposed to understanding one person who is autistic. Does that make sense? I feel like that didn't make any sense. Anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling. I hope that you found this video somewhat helpful. If you really like my makeup, by the way, I did this inspired by one of my tangles, and that's over on my TikTok, and I'll link that in the description. If you did like the video, you can give it a thumbs up. I would super duper appreciate that. If you want to subscribe and turn on notifications, I would also super appreciate that as well. And I hope that everyone has a super good day, and I will see you next time. Bye!